Welcome to the very first episode of The Boardroom. This is the podcast where we talk about all the kind of scary, weird bits about leadership, conversations that happen at work that usually happen behind closed doors. The reason I have decided to start this podcast is just because whether it was work situations, social situations, career development situations, for the longest time, just always felt like an outsider. You know, when you have to have those like small talk, niceties kind of conversations within your career, whether it's when you're giving feedback or, you feel like you need to soften it up, give people a shit sandwich, whatever. I just always felt this sense of like, oh my God, this should not be me. I should not be in this position. I don't feel old enough. I don't feel experienced enough. How do I run away? Like, how do I get out of it? But as I moved through the world of leadership, I just very quickly became aware that everyone, and I mean literally everyone, is winging it. Like every single person is winging their way through work. And that's not to say they're bad at it. I'm not taking away the fact that a lot of them have brilliant experience, maybe have degrees, whatever. It's just that we're all winging it. And I think I found my way into a lot of those boardroom meeting rooms when I was quite young, like 27, 28 years old. I found my way into those boardrooms with people who were decades and decades my senior and had this very sharp sudden realization that everyone is winging it. And I want to just open up some of those boardroom conversations. So we're going to talk about literally everything from career, work, personal life. Like nothing is off limits in this. I am currently in a dark room with just our producer and with Tisha. And so, it feels like we're kind of alone, and I do not know if anyone's even going to listen to this. So I'm going to be very honest, probably going to say far too much. But, another reason for me starting this podcast was I am very used to creating things for social media. So 60-second, 90-second short snippets, carousels, whatever it may be, and breaking down very complex topics into a super simplified format for you guys to all go and use. And I know that's helpful. However, there is so much nuance to the world of leadership, to the world of careers, development, and our lives that we need to just go deeper on. And so this is an opportunity for me to just go a bit deep with you guys, go a bit deeper. I'm kind of seeing this as like therapy. I used to go to therapy and I stopped recently. So I'm like, maybe this is going to be another opportunity for me to do therapy with myself, with you. One of the kind of sparks as well, the catalyst for me starting this podcast was also the fact that I started to listen to a lot of personal development, whether it's audiobooks, podcasts, media literature out there. I listen, when I tell you a lot, probably over an hour every single day, I am just learning and ingesting information. And something I've started to realize more and more recently is all of our favorite podcasts are very much scripted. They are, sorry to say it, like very much ChatGPT script and people are reading off a teleprompter. And I started to become very aware of that. And I think AI, like I'm not anti-AI necessarily, we use it in the business, we use it to like drive a lot of automation and productivity. But something that I am really against AI infecting, let's say, is the creative world. I think the creative world, the world of art and literature and production, the media should be protected as much as possible. Like this for me is an outlet. It's creative. It's something that I just need. I need to hear people's raw, unfiltered, honest, unedited thoughts. So that is exactly this. There is no script. I have a piece of paper in front of me with like 6 bullet points on of notes that I want to cover. But other than that, everything is completely unscripted. So it might even feel weird to you to hear something that's unscripted because you may be so used to hearing the scripted things now. So anyway, that's where we are, the boardroom. Today's topic, I was thinking really hard, like, what's the best topic to begin this podcast with? Because there is so much we could talk about. And I have so much data on managers, leaders at work, on career development, okay? And the reason I have this data is because every few weeks or so, you'll see me post on my Instagram story saying, what is everyone struggling with the most in their leadership role right now? And every time we get hundreds and hundreds of responses, and every time we get those responses, we put that into a spreadsheet. So I now have literally thousands and thousands of data points, all anonymous, of course, of what managers are struggling with the most in their leadership role. We can then, of course, analyze all that data and pull out like the biggest, most important struggles. I also get it from things just like conversations I have with people. I always make notes on my blog, In the Making, which a lot of you guys will be subscribed to. On In the Making, I ask people when they join us for the first time, what is one thing you struggle with the most right now? And they tell us in paragraphs and paragraphs of detail what it is that they're struggling with. And so if anyone knows a manager at work struggles more than anyone else on the planet, I promise it is me. And so it's just to unearth a lot of those, because something I I want this podcast to be is almost like a precious realization for you all that you really are not alone. Because I think hearing other people's struggles, obviously, I don't like it, but it really helps me to feel less alone. And I think a lot of the struggles and issues that I had back in the day when I was managing 5 different teams, whether it was on a Harrods shop floor or whether it was in big tech, I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only person on planet Earth that had these issues. Turns out I wasn't. All of us have the same issues. So the problem that comes up time and time again for all of us is, what do I do when I'm managing friends? So that could be you joined a business, you were part of a team, and then you got promoted and you kind of made those friendship bonds with the people on the team. It could be that you've been hired in as a manager, but you've just got really close to some people because maybe they're similar to you or you like them or whatever. It could just be that you've hired friends. That happened to me as well. I hired friends into my business, whether it's now or like in the old business that I used to work in. I'd hired friends because I knew they were great at what they did and they were there and looking for a job. So all of us at some point in our career find ourselves in this situation where we are managing a friend at work. So in this episode, we're going to go through what that can look like, the struggles that can bring up. We've also got an In the Making reader that's messaged in with a dilemma about her exact scenario about managing her friends and some of the awkwardness around that. So we're going to dig into all of that today. The first thing I want to tell you is it is okay to be friends with people at work. I think for a very long time, the corporate world in particular has told us, set fierce boundaries, don't make friends, don't cross any barriers with people at work, like you can't do that. And I'm here to tell you that is bullshit, because ultimately we're human beings. We are going to make bonds with the people that we spend more time with these people than our family, right? Like we spend more time with people at work than we do our actual friends outside of work. If a lot of us if we're going into an office every day, you're around these people all the time, every single day. It would be impossible and kind of like inhumane to not be friends with them. So that's the first point, is it is okay to be friends with people. That being said, we just have to be aware of a few different things that can come into play. First of all, bias. Now, there is 1,000,001 different biases out there, but you have to be very, very careful of favoritism. So if there is someone, maybe you've made friends with them because they're very similar to you, that's just called similarity bias. You've made friends with someone because they're similar to you. Maybe they have the same interests as you. And that's okay. But what you then can't do is favorite them, because favoritism can go a really long way. It can start small with just things like, giving people more airtime on a meeting, or not giving people small bits of work to do because you know that they're overwhelmed maybe, so you give it to someone else even though that other person is overwhelmed. And it can start small with little things like that, but it can very quickly develop into toxicity, into other people feeling as though, they see it, like they feel that favoritism, they feel that bias. They may leave, or I would say even worse, you end up giving those people that you like and favorite the promotions, the pay rises, you put them up for opportunities. I remember a situation, and this was back in like 2018, whereby the business I was working in, we were going to a conference and we had the opportunity for someone to stand on stage and do a speaking slot. And quite a few members of the team wanted that opportunity. And the bias inside me, I remember feeling it almost physically, wanted to give it to my friend, aka the person I knew the closest, the person who I knew wanted this just because I'd had the conversations with them about it. But I really had to check myself and be like, does this person actually, have they earned it? Do they deserve it the most? Are they the most qualified? Or do I need to kind of really take a look and step outside and go, no, there's other people who have worked harder for this and therefore deserve it. And if you just really make sure that you have that really strict bias stopper over the decisions that you're making, that goes a really, really long way. Now, I'm going to read out to you the person's dilemma who's messaged in, because I think a lot of us will resonate with this. So this has been messaged in by someone on Substack. I got promoted to team lead about 8 months ago. The team I now manage is the same team that I came up through, including my closest work friend, we'll call her Sophie. We used to go out for lunch every day, moan about the same people, and cover for each other when things got hard. But since the promotion, she's been really off with me. Not necessarily horrible, just really distant. But what I wasn't expecting is how much I feel like I was doing something wrong every time I had to lead her. Last month, I had to give her feedback in a one-to-one about missing a deadline. And it's something I honestly wanted to let slide. But I had the conversation, I delivered it professionally, but she didn't take it very well. And the bit that's really messing with my head is this. I know things about her life that me, her new manager, probably shouldn't know. I know why she's distracted. I know why she's a little off. I know what she's got going on at home. And I'm sat there in this one-to-one using my manager voice to deliver this difficult conversation, to deliver this difficult feedback. And all I can think is, I know you, and this is so strange. Nobody told me the promotion would feel like a loss of a friend as well as a win. Is this normal? And did I just lose my best work friend in the process of becoming her boss? So much to unpack here. I think the first one is just, let's talk about the fact that, because I don't think this is just managing friends at work. I think this is managing anyone. When you know people have got things going on at home, what do you do? Because a lot of us in those moments shy away from then giving difficult conversations. So let's talk about that one first. If, for example, you ask people, is everything okay? And they offer up information about things at home that aren't good. Of course, in those moments, we want to apply as much empathy as we possibly can. So I usually will, if people have got something really difficult going on at home, I try not to get too involved with that thing. So what I mean by that is a lot of managers tend to cross the boundary a little bit between helping someone professionally in work and supporting them with their home life. Now, there is ways that we can help and get involved, but there has to be a boundary. So for example, I remember there was a time back in the day when I was working in an old business, we had a member of the team who had just been diagnosed with depression. Okay. So really serious stuff, really difficult stuff to help manage someone through, but more difficult for him. And in the moment when he told me, the first thing that I did, and this was the biggest mistake, this is one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made. The first thing I did was try to fix it. Now, as you know, you cannot fix depression, especially as an outsider. Like depression, the only way we can get through it is just supporting someone and then that person kind of working through it themselves, especially not a manager. What a manager can do in that situation is give them as much space as they need to come through it, to come out the other side of it, give them some compassionate leave, just ask questions. You know, I think something I should have done in that moment is set regular sessions with that person to say, like, look, let's have a session every week on a Friday at the end of the week and see how work could positively impact you getting through this as opposed to negatively impact, because that's ultimately what we want to do. We don't want work to be a reason as to why that really difficult mental health issue could be getting worse for them. So I want to make sure that work is helping. If coming into work is the thing that's helping them, then let's continue to let that blossom. The mistake that I made was trying to jump in and fix it. And so something that I did was offered to pay for his therapy, was trying to get him to go to therapy, was like pushing this therapy on him. And I knew just a month later when it turned out that he hadn't been going to these therapy sessions, I learned the lesson that you actually can't fix problems like that for people. And so there just has to be this line between like empathy, giving people the space they need to get better, to flourish, to grow, compassionate leave, compassion, empathy. But there also has to be a line. And that line, I think, sits at the point where you're no longer helping them. So for example, you know, if my empathy goes too far, the person may not hear the thing that they need to hear in order to grow. So for example, a month later, once I'd been notified about his depression, if a whole month had passed and his work was really going downhill, he was really struggling, and I thought, I'm just going to ignore it. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to leave him to it because I know that he's struggling. I know he's got depression and I don't want to make it harder. I don't actually think that helps in any way. I think having the conversation, as awkward and difficult as it may be, to just say, look, I know you're struggling. I want to help you through this. I want to help give you some space, but work is really suffering. Like, how can we work together to get this better? What do you need from us? What do you need from your work to help you get this better? What do you need from your work to help you get through this? I guess to go back to the point, which is, you know, if you know someone's got something going on at home, like, how do you help them through it? I think there has to be a point where we give them empathy, we understand, we give them space, we give them care. There has to be a point where as a manager, you recognize that actually the most important thing you can do to help them is still to have the conversation, is still to show them where their work might be missing, but do it in a way that allows them to see that you're making space for their mistakes and for their growth and for their learning. Where we really get into difficulty with friendship versus manager relationships is something you have to know about a friendship is it's equal. It should be equal. A friendship should be both people putting in the same amount of effort to nourish a relationship. A manager-employee, a manager-team member relationship is not equal. There is already a power imbalance. There is already this understanding that as the manager, you have a set of responsibilities that you have to help them with, and the employee has a set of responsibilities that you help them with. It's not an equal relationship. You already start off on an unequal footing because you're paid differently. You may have more experience than them. You're coaching them, you're guiding them, you're mentoring them. And so there has to be this clear distinction between friendship and manager-employee relationship. If you are in a situation right now whereby you have someone in the team who was once your friend and you're unsure like how to manage them, something I think is really powerful is having what I call a relationship reset. So have a point in time, and it could be the end of this week, it could be the end of next week, where you go, after this day, we are resetting this relationship. And all that relationship reset can look like is having a really in-depth conversation with them about how your roles and responsibilities have changed, and also about how you now need to show up and the boundaries that you need to set, and, try to get some of that awkwardness out in the open, explaining, I'm going to have to give you feedback, I'm going to have to hold you accountable, but please know that when I do that, it's all with the intention of you growing. It's all with the intention of, I want us to get better together. I've been promoted and I'm really proud of it, but I feel as though I'm shrinking a little bit because I'm acting awkwardly around you. And it may be something that I'm just taking on. It could, and this is the truth, it could be something as a manager that we have internalized and the other person may not even feel it. That other person actually may really respect you, really look up to you, be very ready and willing to take on your mentorship, guidance, and coaching. And because we are human, we have internalized this idea that they don't respect me, that, they don't want to listen to me, it's awkward. And so just by having that reset conversation can really help to, reset that relationship and really take it from a friend-friend relationship to a manager-employee relationship. A lot of the time as well, when you have those conversations with people, I've had to have them a few times throughout my career now, you will be shocked by the other person's response, because this person was your friend for a reason. This person was your friend because you saw something great in them. You had a sense of love and care for them in some way. And therefore, just by you becoming a manager doesn't undo that. They're not a bad person. They're not against you. They're not competing with you. It's just that the dynamic has shifted. It really has. And I guess as human beings on planet Earth, we just have to recognize that and have the conversation with them. And something really important we have to talk about here, which is that there is a huge difference between being liked and being respected. And when we aim to be friends with people too much, it's often because we are chasing that need to be liked. When we want people to be our friend, to see us as a friend, we're all pally, friendy, blah, blah, blah. It's because we really want that, approval, people-pleasingness off other people. Whereas when we shift to respect, and by the way, most of the time you can't have both. You either get the approval or you get the respect. When we shift to respect, it often means sometimes losing friends. We always have that friend who is a little bit too honest. And sometimes in the moment when they're too honest with us, we're a bit pissed off with them. We don't necessarily like them in that moment. It may hurt. However, I guarantee that friend is the one that you respect the most because you know where you stand with them. They never lie to you. They're just honest with you. And in a workplace relationship, be the person who tells people if they have something in their teeth. Be the person who gives the feedback when it's small, when it's a small solvable thing. In the moment, no, it's not going to win you the approval from people because it can feel a bit awkward, it hurts a little bit, especially if you tell someone they've got something in their teeth, even for 5 seconds, they feel a bit embarrassed, it feels a bit awkward. But 10 seconds later, it's solved, we move on, and that person's very grateful that you told them. And quite often, I've been in this situation so many times, you look around the table and go, why did no one else tell me? Now I'm suspicious of other people in this room because why did none of you tell me? And this person has, and they've put themselves in this awkward position to go and tell me. That's what you have to remember when it comes to these to be honest, any dynamic in leadership. But specifically these friendship relationships, because we're not trying to be liked anymore. When we move into a leadership role, we're not there to make friends ultimately, but we are there to grow, help people, coach people, move people through. And in order to do that, we have to sacrifice this idea of being liked to make sure that we can build the respect with others. Now, I want to end this episode by talking about the best manager that I've ever had. I think something we have to really appreciate here, guys, is that leadership at any level can be a really lonely place. So if you're a business owner, like I am, we know it can be lonely because it's you that all the decisions fall on. It's the very highest last decision maker. quite often you can feel as though you can't build those bonds with your team. So it can feel lonely. If you're a middle manager or in a senior leadership position, I think that's one of the hardest positions to be in, is to be in the middle, because you have this sense of like you're given things from above that you have to act on. And quite often we don't dictate what those things are. So we get given, strategy changes, metrics changes, new initiatives that we have to now send through to our team, and we have had no say in it. Sometimes we don't even agree with them. And that can be a really hard dynamic to manage. But then we, of course, have the other side of the coin, which is like we have our team then pushing back, maybe not taking accountability, not pushing hard enough. And we find ourselves very firmly in the middle. And sometimes we flit either way. Like sometimes we agree with the SLT. We just wish our team would suck it up and do it. Sometimes it's a complete other way where we really respect and understand exactly why our team's frustrated with something, but we ultimately can't do anything about it. We'll talk about change in another episode, because I think managing through change is really important. But I guess what I want to leave you with here is the fact that loneliness in leadership is huge. Like I said, whether you're a business owner, you're a middle manager, you're in the SLT, loneliness in leadership is really tough. But what you have to find is you can no longer be the person who is going out to lunch with people at work, gossiping, spreading rumors, sharing lies, getting involved in the workplace drama, the workplace politics, because that's what most managers do. I'm not going to lie. That's what most middle managers are doing all the time. But that will forever keep you in this zone of manager. It will never move you into the leader where people want to follow you and want to like back you and feel supported by you and feel respected. You have to try really hard to kind of be okay with a bit of sense of loneliness at work and find those relationships in other people. Like find a really solid group of friends outside of work. Even just one friend. I think just having one close friend is more than enough. Having a really supportive partner, like that's so important, guys, when you start to move up through the ranks of these leadership roles. You need someone at home who is in your corner, because your days are going to be hard. They're going to be busy. You're going to have 1,000, 20,000, 30,000 decisions to make. I think the stats are the average person makes 35,000 decisions every single day. For a leader at work, that's 3x's. So almost, over 100,000 decisions every single day. If you're then having to come home and make decisions on things like, what to have for dinner, and your partner's disagreeing with you, and it turns into an argument because you're both like feeling this sense of and in like sort of frustration with one another, and then that blows up, it's gonna start to feel lonelier and lonelier. And so just make sure that you have someone at home, and not to get deep here, because I appreciate, we're going into relationships now, but you really need that support from the network that isn't inside work, because it does get lonely, it gets hard. Having difficult conversations with people at work, holding people accountable to hitting crazy targets is not a normal thing for people to be doing. It's not normal for our nervous system. Like this has only really come about in the last sort of 100 years, I guess, since the post-industrial revolution, sort of bureaucratic, organizational hierarchy kind of thing. That was many, many, many big words. But since then, only in the last sort of 100, 150 years of human beings started to put so much pressure on themselves with work. And just be aware that it is lonely and you need those support networks. So really go out of your way to find them. And when work starts to feel too much, push back on things. Like most of us aren't saving lives. Some of you may be, but most of us aren't saving lives out here. And so push back if the meetings get too much, push back if the targets get too much. Just advocate for yourself. And if your partner at home is not supportive, send them to me and I'll beat them up. That's the only advice I've got there. Okay, Talak, the producer, has just shouted at me from the other room saying he really liked that bit. So I'm not going to beat your partners up, but what he said is, when you get so focused on work and you are very like highly ambitious, this career-driven person, like you and I are, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast if you weren't. It can get lonely, and if you don't have a support system, it doesn't have to be a partner. It could just be one really great friend or one really supportive family member that you can sort of talk about your deepest, darkest fears and worries to. You need to find that person, ask for help. Even if you feel as though you've lost so much faith and trust in the people around you, because I have friends who feel like that as well. Their trust in relationships has been broken and therefore they pour everything into work. But make sure you have at least one supportive friend who you can share this with. And it feels hard, like it feels so vulnerable. I have truly only in the last couple of years started opening up about the fact that I just struggle sometimes with anxiety, with nervousness. Like when we're kind of on the verge of something big. So when we launch this podcast for the first time, I guarantee I'll be the same. We launch a new product, we launch Fresh Start. When we're kind of on the eve of that, I just cannot sleep. I'm just a nervous wreck. I'm up all night. I'm having to journal all my thoughts, fears, and feelings into my notebook. If I've got to have a difficult conversation with the team, if like something comes up that I've got to broach with a friend, I don't know. I get this real sense of like nervousness and fear around it, but I won't let it stop me. I will still make sure that I have the courage to go and do it, but I need to speak to people about it. And for me, that's my partner. All my friends, sometimes I just send the girls group a voice note and I'm like, guys, I feel really anxious about this thing. Has anyone done this before? Has anyone been through this at work? Has anyone been through this at home? Ask for help. And it's not always asking for the big stuff. Sometimes it's just like the tiny, can I have a 5-minute phone call with you to discuss this situation that I've got going on at work because I don't know what to do. If there's people in your life that aren't supporting you and are making it harder to do the things that you love, please take a good hard look as to whether they really deserve a place in your life. If you would like us to go through your dilemma, we've got an email address, hello@theboardroompodcast.com. Please send it in. It can be as short or as long as you need. We will keep everything anonymous. We will never use names. We will never out you, but we may talk through your dilemma live and we can spend some time going through it together. So if you've got one, please email in hello@theboardroompodcast.com. We'll also put that in the description so you can go copy and paste it. Well, thank you for listening to this first episode. We're going to do these every single week. I'm thinking Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. I'm looking at Tisha. Is that right? Let's say that for now. Yeah. Wednesday morning, 8 a.m. And the reason I like 8 a.m. it's the same why we do In the Making on a Tuesday morning at 7:59. The reason I like an 8 a.m. is because it means you can listen to it on your commute into work, because that is the time when I used to always listen to my podcasts, was on the commute into work, whether it was walking on my AirPods, in the car, on the train, whatever. It just gave me that like energy boost for the day. So wherever you are in your day, if you're watching this on YouTube, Spotify, wherever you are, I hope you've loved it. Please give us feedback. You can comment on Spotify, you can comment on YouTube. Give us feedback. What topic do you want us to cover next? What would you love to see? What did you like? What did you not like? Please let us know in the comments and we will be back next week with another episode.